So welcome to the Node.js Next 10 meeting for November 23rd, 2022 still. We'll follow the agenda that was outlined in the issue. Let me just pull that up. I think I had it here somewhere. Okay. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements or anything like that that they'd like to share? Okay, if not, we can move on to the first issue, which was the Get Collab Summit attendee list for follow-on discussion of on priorities. I haven't managed to find any time to make progress on that, so I don't have an update that yet. So I'll just take the note. I just said no update on that one yet. The metadata proposal for docs. So this is number 166. There's a very good write-up that Claudio put together in terms of how to sort of restructure our docs to better be able to generate metadata and manage the docs themselves. Because Claudio couldn't make it today, I'm not sure if we want to dive in to discuss that or if anybody has any comments this week.
Not really, but I think we should try to organize just a meeting being focused on the documentation part, at least just this part, because it's quite a long topic and we already discussed on the previous meeting. I think we spent almost 1 hour discussing about that. So I think we should try to just keep update during a normal next 10 meeting about what the big changes and stuff like that, and try to work alongside some other kind of meeting, because it's can be quite technical on some part and it's quite lengthy every time we talk about it.
Agreed. I actually have a meeting scheduled with Claudia this afternoon just to sort of brainstorm on like I don't know if it's possible from my perspective if we can figure out an incremental strategy in any way. That's kind of what I wanted to explore, because as you said, it's sort of there's a lot there. And going from where we are directly to there, I think might be a challenge. So it's figuring out like what steps can we put together.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because when we talked during a previous meeting or outside of a meeting with Claudio, I think he found, or he was thinking of a way to change incrementally some part, but each part should be at least one, I would say, module, like doing the full FS API first, try that. And I think it's, from what I remember and understood, I think it could be possible. It will require maybe a bit more work, but at least it would be easier, I think, to do as a whole project.
Yeah, like that's exactly the kind of thing I think that could help if it's like, okay, well, we convert one, yeah, but we still generate the same, like maybe it's even that we generate the same thing as we did today in addition to new stuff, and then we can slowly sort of move it over, I think would definitely be good.
Definitely.
The other thing that Claudio did do, which I want to just highlight as well, is he did write up a doc that captures how our existing flow works, which is very useful as that starting point. So let me just find that, because I want to put the link in the minutes. Where is that? Doc. Sorry, I'm just searching over here. It doesn't help me. Here it is. So yeah, if you're interested, that documents like what are the current outputs, how are they generated, and so it's a good starting point to kind of understand, okay, where we are and where we need to go to. And I'll say a big thanks to him for doing that as well, because while we transition, it's actually really good to have that documented.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. I would definitely check that, because every time I had some issue trying to just mentally define how everything was working. So yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I think that, and then if it's incomplete in some place, we should just use that as a place to PR in like new things
Yeah,
as we
yeah, of
learn
course.
them and stuff like that. So it's really, really definitely a great step. Okay. Anything more we should talk about that on that one before we move
Do
to the
you,
next one?
depending on what you will be talking with Claudio, would it be possible to have a short, I don't know, resume or a few key points, depending on what you will be talking about with
Yep.
him? Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, like if we can come up with, in my perfect world, we'd come up with like, here's the 2 or 3 concrete next things we can do that are like a small step or something. I'm not sure what those are, but like if, that's my goal, is to see if we can discuss that and come up with what those might be. And then definitely we'll share that. So.
Yep.
Review the easy retros from the Collab Summit and do the updates. I think that's a good one maybe to come back to, because I think I'm remembering that one of the things you wanted to make sure we did earlier on was to talk about the survey, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think we can talk about the survey first because I would love to have it being sent and launched, let's say for the end of the month, so it can be running until January. So it could be great that we agree on most of the question, even if we do have some changes, but could be a
Sure.
great.
Do you want to share the doc with the questions, or?
Oh, or you want? Yeah, let me just find it.
I have the link here. I can just give you the link if you want to throw it up and share. There.
Up. Yep. 173. Great. Okay, so basically, and I will share my screen on that. Just have to find. Just have to find a good. Okay, share screen. It's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
So
to
many
find it.
different ones. It's like, where is it?
Yes, I think it should be good, right?
Great.
Okay, yeah. So basically, I just created a basic survey question, which for some part was a base question that we used last year, something like that. You have a global understanding on multiple people, and for me, I think we need to have one part of the question which is mostly around where people are coming from and more non-technical question, I would say. So basically, the list of the question is. I will maybe zoom a little bit more. I hope it's visible for everyone. But which constituency do you identify with, and or just reuse the same naming from last year? I just saw your comment right now, and I don't think we added more, but
I'm just
keep
looking
check on
right
that.
now. There's also education and security practitioners.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, so
I just remember because of the survey last year, we found that we'd missed some and we added some. So I'm like, oh, it was right. I think it's the right idea to start with the same ones we had before. I'm just thinking, did we add a few? Right.
yeah, you do have a better memory than myself then.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember some things well, other things not so.
I will definitely update that. So okay, yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
that. Same. So if we do lack some constituency, are you part of them being listed? And if not, we will be able to add a bit more. So that's great. I also did some question about where are you from, because I think could be useful also for us to see where people working with Node.js are mainly coming from. Pretty sure I will know a little bit of the map, but I do hope there is some changes regarding that information. And then it's some basic overall question. Following some group. Yeah, this is a good something we should add also. Yeah, if so, which one? Yep, definitely we'll add that. So at least with that pool of question, we will be able to have a good understanding on who isn't, at least with using and answering our survey. And maybe in the future, how we can target more users or more people using Node.js to answer the feedback, the survey, to have a better understanding and feedback from everyone.
Yeah, I think in terms of the question, in what kind of companies are you working in? I wonder if that should be in what kind of organizations are you working in?
Yeah.
And then we can add like I don't know, like a individual or something like that.
Yeah.
Just because, like, sometimes it's people like, hey, not everybody works in a company, but
Yeah,
make it
yeah, I
org.
didn't find individual. I was putting it to other, but I will definitely individuals.
Okay.
Individual. Yeah, it's better that way. Yeah, I will play that just after the meeting today.
Sounds good.
Yeah, definitely would be great to have that. And maybe I will also replace university by education. It's a broader audience, I think.
Yeah, educational institution or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
Okay, great. And then more technical question, I would say, which could be linked to everyone and which is really what we want to know. I know that we did have some discussion with Matteo and don't remember his name. I don't want to butcher it. Geoffrey.
Jeffrey, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. About basically what kind of other questions. So Matteo was pretty keen to add a question about ESM and CGS as it was a big topic that we raised last on during the Collaborator Summit in Austin, but also the one during in Dublin.
Yep, definitely.
So yeah, so basically reuse at first, what's important for you as people answering this survey and using Node.js and what do you want to maybe know more? So reuse the same question as last year, and maybe I did one or two more mainly. There's a title that we had an update version, but Collaborator Summit.
Yeah, like what I wondered is this year we have this document. Let me just find that. Where is it? This, well, I think I might have put the link in here. Yeah, but that doc.
You did put the link, yeah. This one, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I think if we said those are the project's top technical priorities, it'd be interesting to hear what people think. Now we probably need to update this. Like I know you've got the PRs to pull in the mind maps and stuff, but we should probably update these in advance of the survey, because I think there's like serverless made it in there this time, right?
Yeah, serverless made it this time. It was also on the list, I think, last year, but we decided to not talk about it directly because I think of time mainly, and but it was definitely on the list last year.
I think it was there. It just when we looked at the number of people sort of saying, hey, this is top of mind, it wasn't as many. Like this year it's quite a bit more, enough to say, hey, we should have.
Yep.
So I think it could, the question could be as simple as, which of the top technical priorities that the project has identified are important to you, right? And like list out the ones with a checkbox or something, right? And then there's the link to the doc if they want more details what they are.
Yep. Up this link and the question about up. Yep. Just to keep that in track. And at the end, so the question and the discussion with Matteo and Geoffrey is really about ESM module, let's say ESM module and CGS. It's something which I think divides the community from both maintainer, user, library, author, and stuff like that. So it could be great to have an understanding. And also it was discussed during the last summit on should we try to improve our documentation or at least provide a basic documentation on how we should do or what's the best way which we recommend people to work with.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I don't know if you think of other question or also you, Joey. I sorry, I don't want to butcher your name, but
it's fine.
oh, okay. So yeah, don't know if you have other points or other question we should make it to in the survey that this year.
I was still typing my comment, but wondering about adding a question from a previous discussion in the Node core repo. There was discussion about adding a version checker. And one of the data that we lack is how people are getting their Node executables and how many people are actually using MVN or NVS or N, or if they are using the official installer to install, like it would be useful to have that data to know, like for example, how we can decide whether we want to provide a version, like whether providing a version checker in the node command line is useful or not. Because, for example, if a lot of people are just using a node version manager, it will be easier, or like it would be less meaningful to have a auto update feature in Node, because they can just use the version manager to do that. They don't need a Node executable to do that. So it would be useful to have that data.
Okay, yeah.
I was still typing my comments in the.
Yeah, I'll let you finish typing in because it could be a great discussion. But I think the current discussion in Node Core was closed, if I remember right, or maybe I'm thinking about another one, because for me the main issue around that is how do you make it non-intrusive for people?
Yes. Yeah, but I think the data is still interesting. In case we maybe need it for another reason in the future.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask like, do you want a version checker? I would ask, I think what Joy was suggesting was, how do you get your node? Do you get it through MVM? Do you get it from the download site? Do you use the installers? Like, I think that there's probably a list of 4 or 5 things, right? Do you install the distro's version of Node?
Yeah, or the worst one is using the system-wise version manager, because I think if they use the dynamic linked one, there will be all sorts of problems. But that's one thing that people do.
For us, like, we want all of our customers to do that.
Okay.
For some reasons, because like anyway, I don't want to get into that discussion, but like for Red Hat, if you're running the Red Hat operating system, that's definitely what we recommend. And so,
yeah,
but it's interesting. I think it's interesting to know how people do the different ones.
Yeah, like at least knowing how maybe the data will not be accurate, but like at least have a sense of idea of like whether this is a very niche thing that people do, or is that is something that we need to consider before making any decisions.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like even having in there part of the question being, I don't know, right? Like maybe some people it's just sort of set up for them, right? But yeah, I think that's definitely, it makes me think of another question, which I'm not sure if we'd want to get into, but it made me wonder if we wanted to ask what package manager people were using.
Yeah, is it possible to have like a expanded question? Like if someone chose I use a Node package manager, then they can expand like there will be like a follow-up question about which one you use.
I don't know what tool we are using. I don't remember from last year, but it could be great because for some question like, are you part of the constituency? Yes, not. And if you answer one of the answer, I could jump to another question for some people. So it could be great to have an extended, but I don't know if the tool we will be using can provide that or not.
They tend to be simple. I think if we put the questions together in like that one where it's like a yes, no, and then if so, which one? Then if the tool does support it, it could be used. If not, it can just be that 2-part question, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know. What do you two think? Do you like there's the package manager, like, do you use npm, pnpm,
yarn 1, yarn 2.
right? And so, and then separately, I think we were already talking about the question of like, how do you get your node?
Yeah, I was thinking because I was typing the question as do you use how do you get your executables?
Right.
For example, you either get it from a node specific package manager, well, node specific version manager like NVN, NVS, M, And the second choice, for example, second choice would be the official installer. And the third choice would be like npm or yarn, because you can also do npm install node.
Okay.
And others. And I was thinking whether it's possible for them to, like, for example, if you select the category of node version managers, then like there can be a follow-up question of which one.
Right.
So we can get a more detailed data.
I was thinking like even totally independent of how you get your node, how do you, what package manager do you use might be interesting too.
Oh, yeah, like the coverage of a certain tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would also be interesting. And maybe, do we have like historical question about the basic one is like what CPU architecture, what operating system are they in the survey?
I don't think we've ever asked that. Like I'm thinking back, there used to be like a yearly bigger survey, but I don't think that even that got into like what's your OS, what's your platform.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting as well. Or like what environment do you use? Docker? Do you use I don't know, any other similar technology?
Yep.
I think that would also be useful in terms of having an idea of what the user profile would look like and what we want to test.
Right.
But in that case, should we think about having a special pure technical survey about, I don't know, platform architecture, where you use Node.js as, do you use Docker, do you deploy it using managed services from cloud provider, or I don't know, any kind of question linked to that? Because I think that if we want to gather a lot of data, I think I'm thinking about a lot of other questions which could be useful. So do we want to include that in this, I don't know, mostly linked next 10 survey, or do we want to have something separated really about?
For next 10 survey, I think questions about architecture and operating system would be relevant, right? If, for example, if we are dropping support for a architecture, I don't know, that usually take a very long time.
Yes.
So it would be interesting to know this data to plan things. Maybe it's not going to be the sole data because that's not, I don't think the survey is going to cover, everyone, but it would be interesting to have that data and, sort of help us decide when we want to drop support for a specific operating system version or a architecture.
See, I like that thought because I have multiple different architectures that I use. And if you guys know how many people you have using certain architectures, you can kind of go, well, we can't drop this now, but in 2 years, we can look at it.
Yeah, we can maybe also ask like, how long do you plan to use them? Or, maybe there can be a list of, very obsolete things that we are trying to drop but still are not dropping yet. And, asking how to see if there are still people using it and how long are they going to drop it as well.
Another good question to put on there would be what the length of time that they would use that architecture or that system specifically. Because I know that a couple of the companies that I work with, you have to only support them for 3 years. Some of them are 5, and I have one company that's 8. So knowing that, if somebody has contracts for 5 years that they have to use this system, then that gives you a knowledge of, okay, in 5 years, we need to be able to reconsider.
Yeah, it's interesting. It'd be good to have the data. Some of the decisions on those fronts are not strictly like how are people using it, but also what kind of people we can get helping to keep them going. If we don't have enough contribution in the community, that's also been a significant influencer in the decision. But having some data is always good. So
yeah, there's also sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think there has always been some contributions from people building Node on Android. I'm not sure how many people are actually doing that, but I do know that some people build Node on Android or even iOS, maybe with some options in VA turned off for the JIT, but I guess it will also be useful to have that data for this kind of niche platform, because I'm pretty sure people use it, because I've seen pull requests for, fixing, building Node in Android all the time, but.
Yes. Yeah. Could be interesting. Yeah. I think, like Michael said, more data we have, the better it is to just be able to find trend and how people are using the tool, the runtime, and pretty much everything. So it could be great. I will try to think about, after the meeting, I will just check the record again, and I will add a few other questions. So if you want to jump in also, if I miss some, or if you have other idea, would be great. For that, I will try to keep the survey at least under 20 questions, because I think it will block some people if we give we give them a link with, yeah, you have to spend 30 minutes to answer 500 questions. I think 20 questions, I think, is a good size. I think we are around 13, 15, something like that. So we can add, I think, 5 more questions.
yeah, I agree. That's one of our limiting factors, is we don't want to make it too long. And if we have lots of questions, like your earlier suggestion of maybe we should have like a second survey, which is more focused on, I could see all sorts of questions around like the supported platforms and things. And I think, if you can add a few, we'll see what it looks like. And if it's like, oh, but there's 20 others that we should ask, then maybe we should think of a second survey for that kind of stuff. Or if we can just add in a few more that capture some interesting stuff, then it's, it fits in with the existing one.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. I'll leave my comments in the progress, and and we can decide what kind of questions we want to keep and what kind of questions or play can be reserved for another survey.
Okay, sounds good.
Anything more on this one before we go back to the other items on the agenda?
No, I think that's good. I will update that quite quickly, so we will be able to discuss asynchronously.
Okay.
And if needed, we can maybe, if it's needed, schedule a quick call even outside next 10 meetings. So to try to have it, I think a good time for us would be to have it ready and available for people for starting December at a. So
yeah, I think in that context, it would be good to open an issue, like start the conversation with the foundation staff.
Okay, yeah,
I don't know. Want their help to get the survey out. They probably needs a heads up and to give some feedback whether they think, can they do it in December, and do they think it's a good time, and sort of, it's probably before we even have the questions, it's good to get that discussion going.
Okay, yeah. I don't know the process about that, but if you have a link, I can do it, or you can handle it if you have time. Or,
I think if you just mentioned Robin and Kaylee,
okay, yeah, okay.
it's
Okay,
basically
perfect.
like, hey, we'd like to do this. This was the timeline we're thinking, is that something you can help support?
Okay, oh yeah, perfect. Perfect, I will do that then. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we've talked about the survey, and I'm just gonna say. So okay, I'm gonna flip back to review the easy retros from the Collab Summit and to do updates as appropriate.
I think on this one, I PR two different stuff, both for the community brainstorm and technical priorities.
Yep.
So basically just a global feedback on everything and how the multiple point moved from 1 year to another year. It just as an information because we didn't have the same number of people, more item were added on some list and less on some other, but at least it gives us a global overview. And I think it also gives us some good idea of priorities we should be trying to work on. So to update the technical priority for 2023, serverless, I think being one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like that would, I think in my mind, you've PR'd in the data, which is good. I think our last thing to close this out is to kind of update the technical priorities, that document
Yes.
that with that data. And so we should probably, once we do that, I think we could close this out with you landing these two things. And then we can look again at like, hey, okay, have we done deep dives on the new ones? Probably not. Maybe we should schedule that. Because I think, as you mentioned, serverless is, one that comes to mind is probably a good one to go with.
Yeah, basically the top three would be TypeScript and type support. Sorry, it was on technology part, it was TypeScript and type on the first and ESM support this year, but TypeScript and type were second this year, so it's still quite relevant. And yeah, I was just checking, serverless was second last year on technology trend and third this year. So it was, I don't know why we skip it last year.
I'm trying to remember the discussion. I don't remember specifically why it didn't end up with in the.
Yeah, I don't remember neither. So
okay, but anyway, doesn't matter at this point. History. So yeah, we can review that and put together a PR to update the technical priorities, and that would be the last thing to close that one out. I don't know if you want to do that.
I will do that, and I will ping you on the PR to review it.
Yeah, we can collaborate in the PR itself in terms of.
Great.
Sounds great. I'm just gonna put the link to that. I think is that where? No, let me see if I can find that doc.
Which one?
The technical priorities one.
Yeah, I do have the link. I will put it.
Yeah, I was just yeah, if you want to put it, I was pasting a comment in the 165 issue, but yeah, if you paste it there, that actually works well. Okay.
Okay. Oh, perfect.
Thanks. Oops, and I just messed that up. Just gonna put that in the comments.
Oh yeah.
The issue itself as the last step. Perfect. Okay.
I will try to do that end of week or during the weekend, so it should be available next week.
Sounds great. Okay, so plan for collaborator summit in Dublin. That's the next one. I'm sure it's still open only because we are like the closeout issues. I think we might be able to close that now that you've PR'd in those two other things, and we do have that other issue. Like we have 165 to make sure we finish things. So maybe we could close it out.
Yep. Yeah, you can cloud it.
Okay.
think I don't see other stuff which could be of interest linked to that. So, yep.
Let's do that. Close this. Okay. Okay. The next one is visualization of technical priorities, number 155. I know you were looking at that one.
Yeah, no change, and I started doing it. I will update it with the new priorities. I think it will be easier to have everything in one PR. So yeah, but no change.
Sounds good. Example documentation initiative number 154.
Which one is this one? Yeah, no change, and I think it should be a discussion we started to have during the Collaborator Summit in Dublin. It's like, do we want to try to revive the example repository on how to use Node.js on some different topic? And
I'm kind of like, unless we find a new group of people who are really passionate about doing that, most of the discussions I've heard have been more like, you know, in the core repos, we would document, you know,
external
Node itself,
resources.
but the step beyond that, we haven't been able to manage to like keep stuff up to date and keep it going. So
Yeah, on my part, I will have some example because I need to build some of them for my university. So I could have them available on my own GitHub repository, or if I can also submit them in this repository, if needed. But globally, I think the global question here is, do we want to try to have a community initiative to provide some basic example, or do we want to rely on article being published by people and trying to follow which one are up to date?
yeah, or leave it, I guess, to the community to,
yeah.
Like, do we, I guess there's the three options you just covered are like, we can have our own examples repo, we could curate external ones, or we can just like not have, like leave that resource to the community, the greater community to provide, right?
Yeah, because also some working group, and I'm thinking about the Node API group, that there is some example in a special repository, I don't remember the name, but an API, I don't know if it's on a, so there is also example here. Should we try to, I don't know how we can have that, but because for external people, having some example in one repository, other example in other repository can be quite sometimes hard to find if you are not aware that you have to go to, I don't know, file system repository to check something, or an API to check something else.
Yeah, that is an interesting, like the Node add-on examples is a case where we have like a good set of examples that we believe are up to date-ish. And we refer to people to quite commonly, right?
Yeah.
Now that one is like, it's quite specific to Node, like using the Node APIs and using Node API or Node add-on API versus like, how do you do something more end user, like, I shouldn't say end user-ish, but like it's got a tighter coupling than say some of the other examples, like deploying your application, your Node application in serverless. That's more of a outside the project, right?
Yeah, you know, and even it shouldn't be, I think, on our side, but more on each cloud provider side, because it's quite different how you deploy that depending where it is. I was more thinking about core solution, like how do you, I don't know, if you don't want to use a library, how do you create a CLI, and how are you able to read and write on STD something? How are you able to create a basic HTTP server answering question, and not using a specific framework there, just how do you use just Node.js as a technology, which is a part like the Node add-on module is doing. Say, how do you use, how do you link a C library with Node.js, basically?
Yeah, like I guess the question that I could hear people asking is, because we've talked about having more examples in the API docs.
Yes.
So would those examples go in the API docs or not?
I think it will depend on the size, because having a 30, 40 line example on the API doc, I think will be hard to read.
Yeah.
At least a global example using multiple stuff. But let's say I don't have a good example right now. The only one I have could be on the API documentation. I'm thinking about how to create an HTTP request with agent and not using fetch or some other stuff. And
right.
Currently, you don't really find a good documentation on that, nor in our documentation, nor in other documentation by the broader community.
Right.
You mainly have to read how the function is being built in the runtime.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting, like, so the existing repo that Tierney had worked on was more the, hey, let's get serverless vendors to come in and, you know, show how you use serverless and stuff.
Yeah.
I think what you're proposing or thinking about more is like, you could have like an Node HTTP examples that would show and have examples of using the Node HTTP APIs, nothing else.
Yes.
That would be quite different. So, and then in that context, I could easily see us saying, well, instead of having add-on examples, we should have like an examples directory, repo, and then you could have subdirectories in there. Although, like the Node add-on examples one does have its own automation and actions, and so I don't know if sticking them all together works from that perspective. But I can see the point of, like, it'd be nice to be able to find one entry point where you can get to all of those, right?
Yeah, and just I was thinking also, we were talking a bit earlier about ESM module and CGS. We could have some example how to build a dual export library, I would say, which would be a great place to put it. And on the documentation, on ESM documentation, at the top, you say, if you want to see an example on how to build a library being compatible with both module type, there's a link with a valid example. Even if the function is just displaying a basic hello world with a console log, just how do you build and implement it for you?
Right. Yeah, and really something like that, there should be a link somewhere in the API docs even to do that too, like linking to it if it exists.
Yeah, because I think for me, it's a key topic which really divides the community. And when you check that and you try to find article online, some people will say, yeah, you need to use this tooling solution. Other people will build it quite differently. Other people will be like, you don't need to support A or B, or we don't care, stuff like that. So could be great for us to provide at least a standard way to, we think this is a good way to do it, and to try to keep it up to date.
Right. More along. Okay, because yeah, that's quite different than the previous attempt. And it's interesting. So I don't know, yeah, like I think that would be proposing that and explaining how it fits with the existing docs and stuff like that would be because I'm not sure how, like, the rest of the project will people say, hey, no, that should all just be in the docs, or no, that shouldn't be part of it, but so like what you just described is certainly was a different thought like I understand something different now. So sharing that and seeing what people think, I think would be a good next step. We're getting close to the end. So anything else more on that one to discuss this week?
I'm just checking minute type, deep dive on minute type. The last point, we didn't move more along that, I think. Didn't see something. And the last one would be the create communication channel to JavaScript newsletter. which I think we started to move, and we need to find a good basic tweet and a schedule for that.
Yeah. And the other one we didn't talk about yet is the I-18N initiative documentation. I don't know if there's anything more on
No,
that.
no change. I wanted to check with Claudio how to if he provided an example. I think he wanted to provide some example on how he thought the documentation would be working. I would have done some stuff around that. I was working a little bit around GitHub Action on my own on a different topic, which could also provide a solution to just submit and send changes to a lot of repository automatically every time the core documentation is updated. So I still have to work a little bit on that, but I think for the next meeting I would have at least a basic proposal on how we can work with that.
Okay, because I think there's some coverage of that in that metadata proposal for docs above the 166.
Exactly, yeah.
So I guess you're going to explore that a little bit, and we can maybe discuss it again next time.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so I think that was everything on the agenda. Was there anything else that anybody wanted to bring up or have us discuss this week?
Not especially for this week, but I opened an issue on an external repository about corporate support and contribution, which was a long talk around a lot of topic and subject during the Dublin Collaborator Summit. I don't know if we should talk about it fully publicly. I don't know what's the rule around that, but I think it's really something we should discuss.
I don't think there's anything there that's necessarily, you know, I don't think we should be calling out specific companies or not, but we can talk about the general issues. So
yeah, okay. Mainly for me, and I don't know if something already exists around that, but could be great when someone join a new company and want to, I don't know, have some free time to do open source or find a way to decide. And I think it's linked to the OpenJS and maybe Linux Foundation. I don't know how is it working, but a way for company to contribute and stuff like that, because just asking someone to send money through GitHub, GitHub support or stuff like that is not working.
right. Yeah, no, I agree. So yeah, no, that's a good one for a future meeting. I think we've got you all set up to stream. I'm out on holiday the next meeting, so if you can stream that.
Okay, yeah, great. I will finish the setup. I had every information. I will try the setup, and if I do have question until then, I will ask you.
Yeah, I'm still here next week, so
it will be done next week. It will be working.
It'd be worth testing it out, and if you figure you can get, you could try starting the Zoom. Just make sure it's not sometime when there's some other meeting. You can start the Zoom. You could even see if you can actually get all through the how would you start the stream, and if you run into any problems, just let me know and I can.
Okay, perfect, great.
Okay, well, thanks for everybody who came today. Thanks, Joey, for coming, and we will see everybody in GitHub and next time.